What's the dealio, super friends? How's everyone doing today? Today I'm going to be opening up the Batman v Superman Mafex Superman action figure. Pretty stoked about this one. I can never have enough Superman action figures, and this one looks like it's going to be a pretty good additive to my Superman figure collection. You got some box art on the side, you got some box art on the back there. I like how they've got all the different various poses that they've got him in here. It's not just one, but they've got four, which is kind of neat. And then a whole bunch of language I don't understand. So we're going to open this bad boy up, or maybe good boy. We're going to open this good boy up and have a look at him. Always look on the bright side of life. Here's what you get. Superman also comes with these extra hands, as well as this extra head that looks like Henry Cavill's getting ready to give a blast with his heat vision. It's not bad, it looks pretty good. You'll notice right off the bat though, one thing about the skin tone is it does have a slightly orange look to it, which is kind of strange. My thumb is what proper skin tone should look like, roughly. And then this, you can see, there's a big contrast in difference of color. Still though, not a bad head sculpt. It actually does capture Cavill's likeness pretty darn good with the look of the hair and the sculpt of the face and even the shape of the nose. It's almost like they scanned his face in or something, because this looks pretty darn good actually. And then of course we had the main attraction, Superman. And not a bad looking figure actually. Everything looks pretty crisp and well done. They seem to have put some serious effort into trying to craft an action figure that would represent Henry Cavill pretty darn good. And everything looks, like I said, pretty darn crisp. The look of the S on Superman's chest is painted really crisply, really nicely. They have that textured feel to his costume to try and make it actually feel like the Kryptonian armor. And overall, I think it does a pretty good job in creating that texture. And then you've got really crisp, really nice line work all around the side and his cuffs and down his legs. And the belt looks really nice. So, I mean, I think so far I'm impressed just with how this figure looks to begin with. The boots look right, all the design is there, the paint is nice and crisp. I don't see a lot of paint slop really anywhere. And so this is a pretty impressive looking Superman figure to start with, as far as I'm concerned. And then again, we're going to zoom in on his face there and really get a close look at what they have to offer as far as a face sculpt. And really, it's not too bad. Again, he is coming up a little bit orange. Now, I have the color on my camera set to being vivid, so it's going to exaggerate things just a little bit. But still, it is, I mean, you can see when you put my hand behind him, you can see just how orange his face is. So the sculpt looks really nice. I am a fan of the sculpt. The color just seems a little bit too orange. And you don't really notice it when you have the figure by itself. It's just kind of standing there. I don't know. I mean, I don't think if you're comparing it to anything you would, but it's when you have something else or another figure that is skin color that you kind of go, yeah, this looks like Superman might have spent a little bit too much time flying around the sun or something. This Superman also, as you can see, has a cloth goods cape, and it attaches nicely right in here to the neck piece of his costume, much like the previous DC Films one that I reviewed. It attaches quite nicely into the neck of his costume, and this cape is a nice, shiny, kind of soft material that you could totally imagine flowing in the wind as Superman was flying around. And it's a wired cape, so there's a lot you can do. A lot of people really like the whole wired cape. Wow, this thing is actually really big. Oh my gosh, I didn't realize how big this cape was. It's huge. There's so much of it. Now, articulation for this guy is going to be as follows. He's got articulation in the waist and in the chest, both in a ball joint, and that's a ton of movement, as well as articulation in the neck and in the head. The neck's on a ball joint, and so is the head. So it's ball joints all around. Then you also have a butterfly joint, ball jointed, so they can go all around like this, and they can go forward and back, but you've got, just like that, ball joints. And so there's a ton of articulation that way. Then you've got the elbows, and they're nicely hidden, double jointed elbows. And then you've got your groin, which is your ball jointed groin, but you've also got drop hinges in the groin here too, to make for more articulation in flight and stuff like that. You've also got articulation right here where it will rotate like that. And you got your double jointed knees. And these double jointed knees, I must say, I'm quite impressed with in comparison to the DC film Superman's knees. And I'll show that a little bit later. His knees were just so ugly. DC Films Superman was an example of how to not do double jointed knee articulation. This is a good example of how to do double jointed knee articulation. Not perfect. There is a point where the knee will pop out and it'll look kind of ugly, but for the most part, you're going to have hidden articulation there. You've also got articulation here at the wrists where the ball joint hinge, and you've also got articulation here at the ankles, and the ankles also are on a ball joint, and there's a lot of articulation here in the ankles, and you've also got a toe joint. So this Superman figure has a ton of articulation. I know not a lot of people are really into this kind of articulation. They've gone for more mezco because there's the fabric costume covering all the seams. Some people really don't like the seams, and some people honestly don't like a ton of articulation in their figures because they find that it just gets in the way. It makes the figures more wibbly, especially with Mafex. There you go. I rest my case. Their action figures can be a little bit wibbly. I've gone through 2 Christian Bale Batman figures, and both of them I've hated. I mean, they look great, but they just get so wibbly so quick. I've just gotten rid of them. I just can't stand them. This one, however, I'm hoping I won't have to go through that because I really like this figure and want to display him on my shelf and pull him out for action figure photography for a long time. Now, if flight poses is the name of your game, this Superman figure actually can do a whole heck of a lot. A lot of posability. I mean, you can really tell that this Superman, if he's going somewhere, he can see where he's going. X-ray vision or not, because he can really cringe that neck back and really just get a good look forward. And so this figure offers a whole lot in the realm of posability. So if you're wondering exactly how this Superman figure stacks up against other Superman figures from the film universe, well, this is the DC Collectibles DC Films Superman figure, and he's actually quite a bit bigger and more girthier than this one. So as a fill-in, you couldn't really swap these two out without it looking a little bit weird and out of proportion. However, if you really wanted to and you didn't like what Mattel offered for a Superman figure, you probably could swap this figure in his place with your Mattel DC Multiverse display, and he would probably fit right in. I also wanted to point out the articulation thing I mentioned before, where this Superman figure, all the double joints are kind of hidden and they look good. What I mentioned before is where DC Collectibles really kind of messed it up. Their double joints are really ugly. They stand out. They just don't look good. I love this figure, but I really hate the fact that the double joints just look so ugly. Not so bad on the elbows, but really terrible on the knees. And that's where this figure really, really shines. You know, you can bend these knees quite a bit before you're going to see any kind of, you know, open gaps and that kind of thing, which I think is a huge plus for this action figure. Now, a couple drawbacks, things I don't like about this figure that much really would be the skin tone. I really wish it was just a little bit lighter. By itself, I think it'll display fine, but with any other Superman figures, that skin tone is going to look a little bit orange. And then also, the attachment of the cape to the neckline right here, the closer I look at it, it actually does seem a little bit sloppy. It seems like they tried to do too much. This side looks great. This side is nice and even. This side's got a piece hanging out, so I'm going to have to fix that or customize it or do something to fix that and improve it. But overall, other than that, I mean, I'm happy with the color tone of this figure. I'm happy with how it's sculpted. I'm happy with the paint job of this figure. And I even like this cape a lot better than I like the DC Films cape. Even though the DC Films cape seem to have that kind of wrinkling at the back here that really worked out for it. They like pre-ironed it to give it that look. I like the overall texture and color of this cape a whole lot better than the DC Films one. So what do I think of this figure? Well, I like it. I really do. I think it's a solid entry into the library of Henry Cavill Superman figures, alongside DC Films and DC Multiverse and Mafex and SH Figuarts to come. I think that this one pairs up quite nicely with all of them, and eventually I'll probably have a display that is just Henry Cavill Superman figures, and I'll display this one just as proudly. From the crispness of the S and how much detail they put into getting the glyph work just right, the fact that there's very little to no paint slop, that's a huge bonus for me. They took a lot of work into trying to capture Henry Cavill's likeness rather than just slapping something off real quick. You know, it really seems like Mafex actually wanted to put out a good product, and that's evident. So I'm going to give them all high points for this. I would give this figure a solid 8.5 out of 10 docking marks, only because as a Mafex figure, I know that these joints are going to get really, really wibbly. And then also the cape itself, which is a wired cape, has a wire along the bottom, but no wire along the side. And that's something that makes the cape at times a little bit unruly and hard to control. Anyhow, super friends, that brings my review of the Henry Cavill Dawn of Justice Mafex Superman figure to a close. Hopefully you've enjoyed it or found it useful in some way. If you have, please leave a like on it. It's going to let me know that I'm doing something right. If you have any comments at all, leave them down in the comment section below because I read absolutely every single comment. And if you think you might want to see more of my sort of content show up in your inbox on a regular basis, just hit the subscribe button. Remember to ding the bell so that you never miss a video, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Have a super day.